Hi everyone. So I have been out in the garden picking dahlias and bringing them in, and I've been enjoying them so much, and it's such a wonderful thing to have these amazing flowers at this time of year when everything else is kind of winding down in the garden. But when I did my dahlia tour video, I had so many people ask for a video on how to store dahlias, and I totally get that because growing dahlias is not really that difficult. But storing them is a little tricky, and I think it turns a lot of people off from making the investment in dahlias because they are a little, you can grow them as annuals, but they are a little bit of an investment. So it's nice to be able to store them from year to year and divide them and then create a nice big stock of them. So even though the actual storage part of dahlias is probably over a month away, at least in my area, there are some things that you need to know before you get to the part where you store them. And I know some people have already had snow and freezes, so we're all on a different time schedule here. So I thought I would do a sort of part one of dahlia storing so you know what to look for and you know the first steps and the things that you can do now to get ready for that. And then when it's time, we'll come back and get to the actual storage of them. So the first thing you need to know is that if you are in zone 7 or lower, you definitely need to dig your dahlias and bring them into a cool place for winter. They cannot stay in the ground. Zone 8 and 9, you can mulch and they should be okay. But anything below that, you pretty much have to dig them, or else, like I said, you can grow them as an annual and there's nothing wrong with that at all. It's still a lot of bang for the buck, even if you grow them as an annual. So when to dig them is the big question. What you want to do is wait for a frost that turns the whole plant black. This will be a cooler frost. They'll withstand like a light frost, a touch of it, but in a somewhat colder frost, the whole thing will turn black, and that's what you're looking for. So when that happens, you can, if you want, cut the stems back a bit just to get them out of the way because they're kind of going to be flopping everywhere. But don't cut them any more than 6 inches or so from the base. The other thing to note is that dahlia stems are hollow, and some people recommend that if you cut them, that you do not allow water to get down in that stem because it can rot the tuber. So one year I went around and I put little aluminum foil caps on all my stems, and I don't think it made a bit of difference. I haven't done that since then, and I don't think it made a difference. So I'm just letting you know that if you're really worried about a particular tuber and you want to make sure you get it right, you might want to make sure that you don't leave that hollow stem exposed. But otherwise, I say don't worry about it. Personally, I don't bother with it anymore. Make a note on your calendar of when that frost happened, and then about 2 weeks after that is when you want to dig your dahlias. So leave them in the ground for 2 weeks because what you want is all that energy that's in that plant to go back into that tuber. Otherwise, you're digging what they call green tubers, and those don't store as well. So that's the main thing you need to know is don't dig them too early. Now here are a couple things that you can do before that frost happens. The number one thing is make sure your dahlias are labeled properly. If you watch my dahlia tour, I've got tubers on the brain, obviously. If you watch that tour video, you saw in there that my cafe au laits have gone missing. I don't know what happened. I had a major labeling issue. And what I did was I pulled the plastic plant labels that I had made out, and when I stored them, I just kind of tucked those in with the tubers. Well, I don't know, at some point either like a ghost in my basement changed them all around, or when I was unearthing them from how I stored them, I got things confused. I don't know what happened, but I ended up with no cafe au laits this year, which is really sad. It's probably my favorite dahlia, so I miss them. So what I am doing this year is I'm buying these little plastic zip ties, and I will put a link to this down below for you because I don't have them yet, otherwise I'd show them to you, but I'll show you what I ordered. And they're colored, so I'll be able to color code things, plus I'll be able to write the name on there. And I'm going to go around to all of my dahlias, and I'm going to zip one of these onto one of the stems close to the base of the plant. And that way I will be able to know exactly what is what, and that will stay on there through the storage process. The other thing you can do is start collecting your supplies. You're going to need something to store them in, and that can be, I use collapsible plastic crates, and I'll put a link to those as well. But you could use like a milk crate. You could use the kind of crates that bulbs come in. If you buy a whole bunch of bulbs, sometimes they come in really nice stackable crates. You can even use a cardboard box, but don't plan on using like a big Rubbermaid container, because that's got some issues. So keep an eye out for the things that you might need to store your dahlias in, so you're ready for that. And then the last thing is that you need a medium to store your dahlias in. Now, I have tried a lot of different things over the years. What has worked best for me is animal bedding, which are those tiny, tiny, tiny little wood shavings. I think it's often used for like guinea pigs and hamsters, things like that. I go to the feed store and buy a big bag of those. They go farther than you might think, actually, and I store in that. There are other things you can store in, but I'm just telling you that's what works best for me. So that's the method that I'm going to be showing you. So that's what you need to do. So basically right now, as we're winding up on the season, keep an eye on your dahlias. If you see frost coming, the first thing you should do is run outside and cut all the flowers and bring them all in, because they will not be happy with that situation. You're going to lose them anyway. So bring them in and fill your entire house with dahlias, and you'll wonder why you didn't do that sooner. Make sure they're labeled, and then make a note when they freeze, so that 2 weeks about or later you can dig them. Now, if we have one of those winters or falls where a freeze is really late, if you haven't had one of those killing frosts by mid to late November, it's still safe to dig them then. So keep those dates in mind as well. So that's it. We will come back for part 2 of dahlia storage when we get closer to that part, but I know a lot of people are starting to think about this, so I want to just give you a heads up on the things you need to look for and what you can do to prepare for that now. If you guys have further questions about this or more questions about dahlia storage, other than the parts that you know we're going to get to in part 2, feel free to leave a comment about those, and I will try, I'll make sure I address those in part 2, but I'll try to reply back to those comments if it's something you need to know before we get to that video. All right, you guys, that's it. Thanks for watching. Catch some more videos over here, and we will talk to you soon. Bye.